Hi, Kim Rayner here from All About Spirit. Welcome to episode 29 of All About Spirit's Life After Cancer. And today's show is called What Do My Thoughts Do to My Body? And every week at about 10 o'clock, I do this show on All About Spirit's Life After Cancer because when we're diagnosed with cancer, we really get thrown some curveballs. And this affects every aspect of our life. It impacts our careers and our family life, our relationships with our body, our relationship with our friends, our relationship with work. And sometimes we just don't know how to handle that or how to deal with that. And I created this program because after I was diagnosed with cancer and ready to step back into my life, I didn't feel like I had the support that I really wanted to be able to grow and become who and what I wanted to be. And so each Monday at 10 o'clock Central Time, I do this show. Hi, Sue. I do this show to help people who are struggling with life after cancer to try and find a way to step back into maybe not the life that they once knew, but a life that they can feel like they're thriving in. So today, like I said, is episode 29, and the name of the show is What Do My Thoughts Do to My Body? And I'm going to start this show by sharing 3 quotes with you. The first one is from Wayne Dyer, and it says, "When you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change." That's one of my favorite quotes, and it was really powerful for me when I was walking through my cancer experience. Another quote that I'm going to share is by Einstein, and it says, "The most important decisions you will ever make is whether you find the universe is friendly or hostile." And I really liked that quote too, because it really spoke to how I was going to walk through my cancer treatment. And the last quote that I had is by Henry Ford, and it says, "If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." And those 3 quotes were really powerful for me, and they were really poignant, and they helped me walk through my cancer process. And so I share them at the beginning because they're part of the journey of my thoughts and how they impacted and affected my body. And each one of those quotes are really examples of what we call the law of attraction. And, for those of you who know me, you know that I am a law of attraction life coach. And a lot of times when people are thinking about the law of attraction, they think about it in the context of the movie The Secret and how we are able to make bazillions of dollars by just changing the way we think about things and just changing our focus on things. And that really gives the law of attraction kind of a bad rap. And I that's not the way I subscribe to the law of attraction. I'm talking about the way that our thoughts and ideas attract to us the kind of life that we live. When I think that the world is a really lousy place, I notice the lousy things that are going on in it. When I think the world is a really great place, I start to notice the really great things that are going on in it. So the law of attraction is sometimes misunderstood. And when it comes to things like healthcare or bad things that happen in our lives, a lot of times we end up posturing ourselves in the place that says, "I did not create this for myself. I did not attract cancer to me." And that is absolutely the truth. I did not attract cancer to me. And that's not what the law of attraction talks about. That's not what it says. And when I slip into that place, and I sometimes do slip into that place where I want to assign responsibility for what's gone on in my life, or I want to find somebody or something to blame for the circumstances in my life. And, that's not terribly helpful, and it's really common in the law of attraction. And, it's not helpful, like I said, but it's a really normal reaction for us when we're trying to figure out how to manage or walk through the process of something that's really hard. And so this isn't to shut down the idea of the law of attraction, and it's not to squish your thoughts when you're feeling bad or you're feeling scared. it's to acknowledge that, okay, I have fearful thoughts and stuff, and if I continue on that path of those fearful thoughts, I'm just going to continue to be more scared, that it's not that fear, it's not going to go away by that. So what this is how do I shift my perspective? How do I change my relationship to what it is that I'm thinking? And, assigning responsibility and blame, like I said, is a normal response to stress. It's a way that we try to manage it. And the truth is, the word responsibility it really is nothing more than just the ability to respond. And it's, how do I respond to this? How do I deal with this? How do I walk through the process of this and be okay with what's going on? So that's really what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to talk about it in the context of three things. One of them is my relationship to my illness. Another one is the idea of a cure versus being healed. And then the third item is about focusing on what we want rather than what we don't want. And my ability to change the perspective, my ability to change the way I thought about things, that is literally what allowed me to awaken to my ability to contribute to my own healing process. And that was really powerful for me. It was really important for me. And it's so easy when you're sick to get trapped. Hi, Jeanette. It's so easy when you're sick to get trapped into the fear of what society tells us is going to happen next, or into the fear of what my life is going to look like because this is never going to change. So if we take those three quotes that I started with at the beginning of the show and just kind of break them down, that Wayne Dyer quote, when you change the way you look at things, the way you look at things change. If I can shift my thoughts or my ideas about my diagnosis from, oh my God, I have cancer and this is absolutely horrible, to, wow, what is this diagnosis trying to teach me? How is this diagnosis a messenger for me for what might be going on in my life? How can this diagnosis help me in my evolutionary path about why I'm here? And there's a whole bunch of tools that are available to us. Louise Hay, and I talk about her a lot. Louise Hay is one of those people who is a great tool for us to be able to process this information. And, that has to do with my relationship to my illness. Am I walking around thinking, oh my gosh, I hate this, I hate having this, I hate the way my life is because of this? Or am I looking at it and saying, okay, this has truly given me the ability to slow down. It's given me the ability to perhaps find empathy with people that I haven't had empathy with before. It might be giving me the ability to find a way to stand up for myself, for my body, for my healing, and at the same time to stand back and to allow whatever it is that's supposed to happen. Because in the world of spirit, at least for me, if everything happens for a reason, then if I can look at my disease that way, it gives me the ability to shift my perspective. And then I can start to change the way I look at things, and then things start to change. And that was really powerful for me. And, everybody has their own experience with their illness. They have their own experience with their disease. And so the possibilities are endless, and they're unique to each of us. So we go through our own journey of unpacking our health issues, and that's where the healing takes place. It's not necessarily that, that my disease is going to look the way somebody else's is. It's more about, what does my disease mean for me, and how do I walk through this process of my disease? And I learn to open up to these possibilities. The next thing that I want to talk about is the cure versus healing. And that has to do with that Einstein quote, where it says, you make a decision. The most important decision you're ever going to make is the world a friendly place? or is it a hostile place? And if I look at my disease as if it's a hostile event, then it's going to flavor and impact the way that I walk through this process. If I can look at it as if, this disease is giving me the opportunity to look at something. It's giving me the opportunity to grow. It's giving me the opportunity to transform. Then I can use my disease as a way to actually help me and to actually heal me. And the difference is really subtle between curing your disease and healing from your disease. When I think about curing, that means that I'm going to return back to the state that I was in when I was a little tiny baby, when I was first brought into this world, if I was brought in healthy, or the way I was going to be the day before my diagnosis. And the truth is, I might never be cured of this. That's the truth. But that doesn't mean that I can't heal from it. That doesn't mean that there's not healing to be done. So my job in that process became to find a way to look at my disease as if it was a messenger, as if it was really put in my life to give me some kind of a benefit that I could heal from. And I can tell you that there's tons of healing that I did as a result of my ovarian cancer diagnosis. I healed relationships with people. I healed my relationship with myself. I came to terms with some events that occurred in my life that were really tragic and that were really scary and that were really hurtful. And I found a way to heal from those as a result of my disease. And I healed my relationship with work and with the way that I perceive work. Work used to be the way that I found my value, the way that I found my worth. And through my process of cancer, I learned that I am so much more than the work that I do. I am not just the money that I can contribute to the world. I lost the capacity to do that in many ways. And I needed to find a new relationship with my life and in the world. So I got to look at what's the difference between being cured and healing. And part of that for me was whether the world was going to be a hostile place or whether it was going to be a friendly place. And I needed to consciously at some point make the decision that whatever's going on in my life today is going on for me for a reason. And there's nothing that's happening that's designed to hurt me. And that shift was not easy. I have lots of thoughts that go on beneath the surface that, if I'm really quiet and I really sit and listen, the thought is like, oh, why is this going on? Why is this happening? And I got to get still. I was never good at being still. But I learned how to be still in this process and how to really listen to myself, to my body, to what's going on around me. I got to pay attention to a lot of different things. So that was the second quote. That was the reason for the second quote. And the third quote, which is the Henry Ford quote, is if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And the reason that I selected that quote too for the opening is because my thoughts literally pave the way for what is to come. And that's talked about in so many different genres. It talks about, Jeanette just posted something. It says, be still and know that I am God. And that's really the truth, right? If I can find a way to be still, if I can find a way to let those kind of thoughts become the dominant thoughts in my life, I can heal from this. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be cured, but it means that I can be healed and I can find the silver lining in what's going on. So the Henry Ford quote is all about finding ways to focus on what you want rather than focusing on what you don't want. And we live in a culture that talks about advertising, teaching us, showing us the pain point, getting in touch with the pain. The commercials about all sorts of things is finding a way to make things different than they are. And most of that, we're programmed to look at the negative aspect of that kind of stuff. And that isn't helpful when you're trying to heal yourself of some kind of an illness. So some of the things that I learned or wanted to learn how to shift my thoughts on it's different. It's subtle when you look at focusing on what you don't want versus focusing on what you do want. I might say, I don't want to be sick anymore. And that's focusing on what you don't want. It's saying what you don't want. If I shift that and say, I want to be healthy, that has a whole different feel. So when I say that, I pay attention. Does what I'm saying lift my energy, or does it kind of make it feel squished or squelched down? Another one is, being desperate. I don't want to be desperate about my health. I don't want to be desperate about what's going on. And a way that I would reframe that to something more positive, or to be looking at what I want, is to say, I want to be strong and I want to be confident with whatever is going on in my life. I want to have the strength and the confidence to be able to deal with it. That feels really different than saying, I don't want to be desperate about this. Another one is, I don't want to waste time doing this. And, wasting time is a big thing when you're sick. There's a lot of ways that we think about what's going on for us as being a waste of time. And if I can reframe that as, I want to have the energy to enjoy my life, that feels really different. There's no demand placed on that. There's no hidden expectation placed on it. It's just saying, I want to enjoy what I've got in front of me. I don't want to worry. To reframe that would be, I want to trust what's happening. I don't want to need to be reassured by everybody. I don't want to be looking for people to reassure me. Okay, I would reframe that by saying, I want to be self-assured in this process. I want to be relying on the God of my understanding in this process. I want to be comfortable in this process. So those are all ways that we take the what we don't want, which is the natural reaction. It's the natural thought about what's going on, and we shift it to be more in line with what we do want. I don't want to fight and argue. I want to be considered for my space or my perspective or my place in this process. And, I want to avoid the fear. And, that could easily be, I want to be empowered in this process. So finding ways to shift your perspective from what you don't want into a perspective of what you do want is really, really powerful. And, I always try to mention during these shows that the things I talk about, this is not a substitute for medical practice. This isn't a substitute for some kind of treatment. If you have health issues going on, go get the treatment that you need. The stuff that we talk about here is to complement that work. It's to say, I looked at my IV bag hanging one day, and I watched the nurse come in to hang the next bag. She's wearing 2 pairs of gloves, and she's hanging a bag that is double bagged because she doesn't want to touch the bag. And you're putting that into my body. I looked at that for a moment, for more than a moment, and thought, man, they are sticking that poison in me. And I was able to shift that perspective to, wow, they are taking that fluid that can be poison for someone else and turning it into something that's life-giving for me. That was a huge shift. It made me able to walk through my chemo process being grateful and recognizing the benefit of what they were doing for me. So there's so much of this that has to do with perspective, and it's done in conjunction with the work that your medical team is doing. So one of the things about the law of attraction, and I talked about it, is sometimes we like to place blame. We want to assign responsibility. And that doesn't work very well for us when we're looking at trying to walk through this process using the law of attraction. It's not about assigning blame. It's not saying that you created this or caused this. It's about finding a way to shift where you are, to look at that perspective, and to really say, okay, what do I do with this now? This is where I am right now. What do I do from here? Where do I go from here? How do I do this from here? Not going back and trying to figure out how you got here, because that's not going to help at this point. It's saying, this is where I am today. This is where my stake is put in the ground. What am I going to do with it now? And then the last thing that I want to mention is when we have a disease, and this comes too from the work of Louise Hay, when we have a disease, it is absolutely a representation of some kind of imbalance that's going on for us. And what we do with that imbalance is up to us. So if we look at our disease as a way to say, okay, what can I do to bring this more into harmony? What can I do to bring this more in balance? It's going to help us walk through the process, whether we are expecting to be cured or not. You know, if we go into it expecting to be healed, we have a much higher chance for success. So I guess the takeaways for this is, as you walk through the process of your disease, pay attention to the things that you're thinking. Pay attention to the stuff that's happening under the surface. Pay attention to where your mind goes when you're still and you're all by yourself. And listen to whether or not your heart is expecting to be cured or healed. Look at whether or not you're assigning responsibility for the condition of your life to someone else, or if you're assigning the responsibility for walking through this process to you. I learned, based on my experience, that my doctors do not keep track of my health the way that I'm going to keep track of it. It's my body, it's my health, it's my life. So it's my responsibility to pay attention to what's going on, to talk about what's working, to pay attention to how I'm walking through this process. So what I leave you with today, what I leave you with today is the idea that you have responsibility for where your life is today, in the sense that you get to decide what you're going to do with it. I don't blame me for cancer. I would never blame anybody else for cancer. All I'm saying is that you have the ability and the right to decide, where do you want to go from here? What are you going to pay attention to? What are you going to think about? How are you going to walk through this process? And if you're not sure whether or not you're focused on negative or positive, whether you're focused on what you want or what you don't want, pause for a second and think about how it's making you feel. How are you feeling about that thought? Does that thought make you feel better or make you feel worse? Does the idea of not being cured make you feel better or worse? Does the idea of possibly being healed make you feel better or worse? And as you walk through that process, you'll gain skill. You'll find the ability to shift your perspective. You'll find the ability to transform your life in that way. I know that it works because it worked for me. And if it works for me, it's going to work for everybody if you're willing to apply the principles, if you're able to do the work, if you're willing to do the work. So with that said, I don't think I have anything else to talk about today, other than to say, if this information was helpful for you, if you feel like you got some information or got some help on how to shift your perspective, how to change your thoughts or ideas, I'd really appreciate it if you'd like this, if you'd share it. If you know somebody who might benefit from this information, I'd appreciate it if you'd share that too. And as always, if you have questions, if you need help walking through this process, if you're not sure what to do with the information I've shared, please feel free to reach out to me. I am happy to be in communication with you. And until we have a chance to meet, I hope that life treats you well. Thanks for being here today, and make it a great week. You're welcome, Jeanette, and I'm glad that it was helpful. Take care of yourself, my dear. We'll talk soon.